wanted to welcome you all for coming.
Welcome all of you for coming. We really appreciate this so much. It's great to see all your beautiful faces.
We'll call this an unveiling party
An
instead of an unveiling
party.
moment.
Throughout history, unveilings were actually very popular as far back as early 1800s, I think. And it was because oftentimes painters, it would take them quite a long time to finish a painting, but when they finally finished it, they would do a proper unveiling party. So that's what this was going to be, because obviously both of these paintings took a long time. The Reborn over here, we started in August and finished this morning at 9 o'clock.
Actually, I didn't tell you.
It's really a wonderful experience, an honor to paint with David. Imagine he's passionate, he's incredibly talented, as all of you know, and incredibly generous, and just it's a wonderful experience. I can't imagine not painting with you now. Although we do our own work still, but it is wonderful, and it is a labor of love.
It's interesting because I came from a more traditional background. Classical, academic, I was an illustration major, and then kind of was doing Impressionism and classical realism. The things that we have in common, and we appreciate a lot of the same paintings, but it's the differences that have been the things that have been the great teachers for me. So Nancy has become the only teacher I have left anymore. I don't know who else to even look to for inspiration and knowledge other than Nancy. And the greatest teacher I've ever had in my life, and working with you is a total privilege. So how do we communicate in a painting something that goes beyond what a camera would see? That fixed moment, fixed space and time. As soon as you start to take that on in canvas, you run into all kinds of problems, right? Because how do you show that figure from all sides? How do you show that sense of motion? So we've abandoned the idea of taking a camera with us and trying to capture it and work on it that way. And we're working very much from memory and impression and experience. And I'll give you an example. When a school of fish swims by, how many fish are in it? If you took a picture, you could count them all, right? But if you went on a dive and you came back up, you'd be a little confused about that, right? You would say somewhere between 20 and 20,000. The idea of painting things that convey a passage of time, which is the way that humans experience the world, has become the mission of our work. Painting in 4D, because we have height, width, depth, and time. And that's our fourth dimension, is time. The thing that you want to do more than anything is show people in your paintings how beautiful the ocean really is. And so
that's our biggest influence, I think, is really the ocean, and trying to call attention to its beauty and the fact that we really need to protect it and give to certain foundations. We did a couple of charity events. One was with Seasade, and we did another with Reef Check, two great organizations. So we're trying to bring more attention to just keeping our oceans as beautiful as they are.
So just give a very quick overview of what the history, very quick, of the history of underwater painting, but there isn't much history of underwater painting. So at first we had scientific illustration where people would catch things and bring them up and draw them and try and identify them scientifically. And then in the 70s, a guy named Stanley Meltzoff was an illustrator, and he fell in love with scuba diving. He was an early adapter on scuba diving, and started doing some paintings. If we look at Kanevsky's got sort of a disjointed sort of situation where you have a lot of figures kind of coming together, but they're really one in motion. So we have these different influences in modern art, but also through historic art, and trying to bring all of that stuff together with the underwater subject matter, which really hasn't been done. So anyway, that's kind of become our goal, is to step into the underwater subject world, underwater world, and bring a fine art aesthetic to it, bring some real quality to it. It's never been taken on. It's incredibly challenging, obviously, but that's become the passion of our lives, and we're very committed to following it through. So the work that you see here in this room is some of the first work ever done that attempts to bring a fine art aesthetic, a high art aesthetic, to underwater subject. And I couldn't be more proud of the work that I've done with Nancy on this over the last couple of years, and especially this year. So,
This is very personal. So it was about my experience first time as a scuba diver, and all of that magic of underwater and the exhilaration, and just a real new world, and made me feel like I was reborn. It truly, truly did. And that was the idea. I wanted to put figure work in it, but I also wanted to put in this very, very rich underwater. We wanted to really do kelp that looks like the Channel Islands, because we love the Channel Islands so much. For us, that's a very spiritual place. The gold leaf was a new thing for us. We had both done a little bit in the past, but we honestly, and I told a couple of people today, we woke up one morning, we hadn't talked about it, and both of us looked at each other and said, let's use our gold leaf. I want to let you all know these two beautiful frames were done by our friend Chris Kierkegaard.
Who's here today. So taking one figure and doing 5 or 6 expressions of that figure sort of tangled together and abstracted. Sometimes we start putting enough of different poses in there, Nancy, that you can't always tell which arm belongs to which figure, what foot belongs to which one. And that's our attempt at trying to create that sense of motion and giving the experience of the passage of time. So it's a painting that is exploring pattern and motion and passage of time and color and opulence and richness. And I think of the ocean, and I think of especially our local, really pristine Channel Islands ocean, and I think of that richness. And so we wanted a painting that would really convey that.
These guys, I fell in love with these little fish, these little palmettos, and they're so beautiful. They're elegant. They have, as you can see, these beautiful, beautiful fins, and I like this moment of being in a shallow part of the Caribbean and that feeling of light coming in, but also that serenity that I think that these guys have. They're graceful. Of course, they can be very, very fast, but this moment, this feeling of this serenity, I think is what we really wanted to convey in this piece.
But when you're in that top 10 feet or so of the water column in the Caribbean, and you have a 200-foot visibility underwater, and you have all that light that's flooding in from the surface, but then it's bouncing off of the sand as well, and everything's reflective, and you just have ribbons of color running all the way through it. These sort of snaking, moving patterns that move across the fish and across the sand everywhere. And the fish have actually developed that kind of coloration and that kind of sheen to them, that they become almost invisible, and they are camouflaged as those moving ribbons of light. And so to paint an animal which is camouflaged as light itself is pretty exciting, right? So thank you, everyone. We'll just